Good afternoon, class. My name is Chauncey and today I will be discussing the topic of immigration. And the main thing is that Trump's wall proposal between Mexico and North America is a detriment to our economy and also our image as an influential democratic superpower. Okay, so already President Trump has hurt our economy with the shutdown, and so even though he had signed this employee fair trade Treatment Act of 2019, which requires that government employees receive compensation for the hours worked during the shutdown. I feel as though this whole debacle was like a waste of time, and that the money could have been allocated towards a more pressing matter in the government, and that because like the compensation had reached the employees late, but they were not able to not everyone was able to pay their bills on time and their expenses, weekly expenses and whatnot, so which in turn led to investments occurring later and ultimately stifling our economy a bit. And another negative is that this has further, made it so that the Democratic and Republican parties are at odds due to Trump's uncompromising decision making. And all in all, it was just a waste of time and effort that the government could have allocated towards something else that is more pressing for our nation. So also, the projected $5.7 billion that Trump had called that he wanted to use for the renovation, or actually for a new wall, could have just been easily used for renovation of the current border, which is working for the most part, and or it could have or to reform the process of becoming a legal citizen of the states, so that those that want to become a citizen are able to do so. And why that we want people that want to become a legal citizen of the states a more easy process to becoming a citizen is that ties between America and Mexico are important because I believe Mexico is the second largest buyer of U.S. goods and third biggest consumer of U.S. agricultural products, and America is third most important trading partner due to the fact that we trade over $1 million of gross domestic product with Mexico every minute, and that came from a 2017 post from the Guardian.com. Also, so another reason to make immigration easier is that for every one increase in youth population of immigrants, GDP level increases by 1.15%, and the average number of immigrants seek better job opportunities in the U.S., and these are people that are typically able-bodied and willing, able to relocate for work, and usually are competing within those in the workplace with education of a high school dropout versus us college students and graduates and whatnot. And also the population of illegal immigrants compensates for the amount of elderly, disabled, and impoverished that live off Social Security. So that's also good as well. So yeah, and allowing immigrants to seek asylum and better opportunity in America is also a good thing because in a study done in 2019 by two American political science professors, and one was from UCLA, there was an examination of how many immigrants from autocracies, where the go affect whether or not they're able whether or not autocracies relate return democratic. They found that when greater numbers of citizens from an autocratic home country migrate to democratic within the next 5 years, goes up sevenfold. And so lastly, if we refuse to fight the tyrannical oppression of the allegedly corrupt governments of South American countries and their violent cartels and choose to build a wall to block out, and we are essentially showing the world that we are only able to help those that we believe we can benefit from. And in doing so, that we are no longer a nation that offers life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all that seek in our country. And this will not only further distance us from our South American allies, but may influence our nation to call out to us for economic aid, influence the nation not to call out to us for economic aid, and in the sense that they have this closed door perspective of our government and whatnot, and which in turn will lead to us being ostracized by other potential allies, which would negatively affect Americans socially and economically. Thank you.
All right, well, at the beginning, you do identify the proposition, but it really sounds like there's two propositions. In fact, if I think about it, it sounds like maybe that's the preview of what the supporting contents of the speech are going to be, and we don't really have a proposition. We have a preview of what the main 2 points are going to be in the speech. You do get sidetracked at the beginning on the government shutdown, which seems to have, I mean, obviously there was a relationship to funding of the wall and controversies connected to that. The impact of the shutdown on the economy is mostly asserted. You do go on a sidetrack issue about the compensation law that was signed to try and address those issues before any shutdowns occur, and I don't know that that helps you in the long run. There's not any quantification of what the impact was of the period of time that there's a shutdown. I don't think anybody's enthusiastic about that, but the notion that it is harmful to the economy, I don't know how we measure that or look at that and evaluate that in this particular context. And it has little to do with the question of whether or not the wall would work and have this benefit. That's all a process thing, that the process has had some problem, and I think that that's maybe a separate argument. The argument about the value of maintaining close relations with other countries economically, that makes sense. There seems to be a presupposition that U.S. restrictions on immigration from Mexico are somehow going to affect our trade relationship with Mexico, but I didn't see any evidence to suggest that, only information that suggested that Mexico's an important trading partner. So if you could show, for instance, that Mexico is retaliating against the United States because of our attempts to build a barrier or to restrict immigration, then I think that that would be helpful to the argument that you're presenting there. Then there's several claims that are made about the value of immigration, which is maybe perfectly justifiable, although I don't know if it distinguishes between legal immigration and undocumented immigration, which is the whole point of the restrictions that Trump wants to put into place. So I think you need to focus on that a little bit more clearly. And then there was some issues about how this sort of immigration is beneficial to the economy. The main way that you present that is that every time the population increases, there's an economic benefit. There are costs involved with that, and I assume that that would be what the response speaker will be talking about at some point, and we don't have any comparative data from your position relative to what the other side is going to be arguing on this issue, so I think that that's a little bit more problematic. This last issue that you have, and by the way, I do think that there is kind of a structure. It needs to be a lot clearer, but it sounds to me, Gesundheit, it sounds to me like you do have a final claim that you're presenting here about the impact that this is going to have on the U.S.'s democratic authority around the world, either as a spokesperson for human rights or in some way being able to function well with our allies in this hemisphere. And I think that that's an interesting argument, but it's a little bit underdeveloped, and it presupposes, again, that there's going to be some consequence without showing us that these consequences exist. And I think that's a little bit problematic. The one piece of information, like I said, you had two pieces of information, one that's not cited, and that's the increase in the GDP. The other one is the UCLA study that you cite that talks about how as we increase the number of immigrants in democracies, there's a 7-time-fold increase in something else that's going on. That was a little bit confusing, and it sounds to me like you're paraphrasing something, not quoting it directly, and so I don't know exactly what the inference is that you're making there. Presentation issues, I think you have a tendency to drop your voice when there's a moment of uncertainty, and you also do it when you're making transitions between ideas and supporting points. And to be more effective, you need to project more, stay consistent in the volume that you're using, and hopefully not have as many hesitations as you're going through the material. I think that'll enhance your ethos. All right, thank you.